share a microphone again with Zoe. Much appreciated that introduction. Now, I'm just going to give you a bit of a synopsis about what it was like during those 10 days in April after Liberation Day was unleashed onto the world. I'm glad to say that this summer has been a little more calm and a little less eventful, because if I could summarise what it'd be like, I'd say it was like this. This is the hyperspace mountain roller coaster at Disneyland Paris. Now, we knew we were going to be buckled up for a roller coaster ride. We were prepared for those tariffs, but the deep plunges, twists and turns on markets, well, it was just like that. It plunged the world into darkness. And now we've come off this ride, finally blinking into the sunlight. But the problem is we don't know when that ride is going to take off yet again. We've heard today that Trump's going to slam 200% tariffs on pharmaceutical goods, 50% tariffs on copper. The world is still very uncertain. We are in this circus of uncertainty. And the deep twists and turns on the markets have been more intense than during the great financial crisis, when I spent plenty of all-nighters trying to work out what Gordon Brown, Mervyn King and Alistair Darling were going to do to try and save the economy. So today, in the 10 minutes, I'm going to tell you where we are right now when it comes to trade, what the outlook is for the global economy and the UK, where some of the opportunities could be, but where the risks are lurking on the horizon, and how you can deal with this, what you can do to try and make yourself that little bit more resilient and seize the opportunity when it comes. So we are off the roller coaster and we are onto the bumper cars. This is how it's playing out. You've got Trump cozying up with Xi Jinping and Keir Starmer to some extent, while leaving Ursula von der Leyen from the European Commission on the sidelines, because Trump really wants to make this a big negotiating ploy. He's dangling trade deals in front of some, withdrawing them from others. But certainly the fact that he cozied up with Xi Jinping and offered a trade deal to China did mean that, as far as financial markets were concerned, there was a big relief wave washing through Wall Street. So what you're seeing is financial markets reach back to the peaks that they were before all of this erupted. But a word of warning, there is still a lot of uncertainty out there. The outlook for the global economy is a lot lower than it was before, a lot darker. There's clouds on the horizon. The World Bank has estimated that global economic growth is going to be 2.3% this year. That's the lowest since the pandemic. Growth in the United States is expected to halve. One of the countries which is expected to be more resilient, though, is China. Now, you may think, well, surely it's been mired in a property crisis. I've heard all of these problems coming out of China. Well, yes, it still is. But remember, China's had to get used to this tariff environment ever since Trump's first term. Then they were ratcheted up again during the Biden administration. And now we've got this fresh tariff. So China has been forging relationships with lots of different countries around the world. And actually, its exports have stayed pretty resilient. And it has might in certain sectors, not least tech. Look at this. This is a huge automotive factory. Xiaomi, the phone maker, only got into the business of making EV cars a short time ago. Now it's rolling an electric SUV off the production line every 76 seconds, and a phone every 1 second it produces. And meet the Agibot. I met the Agibot at this huge AI conference in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia in February. It is so impressive. This is the next wave of AI-powered robotics that is coming out of China. Home helps, potential bricklayers. And it's this type of technology why the US is running scared, and why you are not going to see any kind of real ceasefire in the trade wars erupting anytime soon between the US and China. We are still going to have this trade war evolving, and it's not going to change anytime soon. So what about the UK? Well, this is what Keir Starmer has been doing. He's been hooking for trade deals. So we've got trade deals hooked with the United States and India and the European Union, of course. And that actually, despite all the headlines that we are seeing, like today I walked past City AM on the newsstand saying Britain is broke. Well, it is in a tricky situation in terms of the public finances. Yes, that is for sure, because we have, of course, the welfare revolt. We have increased spending on defence. But as far as international investors are concerned, they do see the United Kingdom now as a more stable place to do business. But of course, growth is not going to be shooting the lights out. Only expected to come in about 1.1%, 1.2%. So there is a lot more work to be done. So where could the opportunities be amid all of this uncertainty? Well, of course, as we've been hearing today, AI, it's going to be part of our daily lives. And those big tech giants on Wall Street, the ones with the really deep cash pockets, even if there is going to be turbulence as demand for AI waxes and wanes in the future, or we have problems when AI starts to use regurgitated AI data to train its large language models, or we have chip shortages coming up, they will be resilient nonetheless. And the AI juggernaut is going to keep powering. But also it's the essentials. It's those companies that make toilet rolls, for example. We always need them in times of crisis. And those consumer goods giants, they tend to be much more resilient in times like these. But also, it's the ultra luxury, the high net worth individuals. They're growing around the world. And so you've got the likes of Rolls-Royce motor cars, Chanel, Hermes. They're doing pretty well. It's the mid-market where there are difficulties, and it's really tough. Those companies aimed at the aspirational shopper whose budgets have really come under the cosh. So what is ahead in the fairground house of horrors? What threats linger on the horizon? So we've had the black swan, that's the pandemic, it was a really highly unpredictable event that hit the world in the face. Then you've got the grey rhino, a clearly visible threat that is charging towards you, just like Trump's tariffs on Liberation Day, but everyone just ignores and goes, yeah, it's never really going to happen until it's a bit too late. Then I think what we've got at the moment is the spectre of stagflation looming over economies. And stagflation is where you've got stubbornly high interest rates, but a slowing economy. And that poses all sorts of problems for central banks to deal with. But of course, as well, we do have geopolitical risk. And we are in a high risk cycle at the moment. We are not dealing with rational actors. We've seen lots of unpredictable events happen. Look at the spike in the oil price over the last few weeks after the US attacked Iran. And we still have the war in Ukraine playing out. Of course, the invasion of Ukraine took the world by surprise. But it didn't take the military by surprise. Certainly not the Royal Air Force. This was me back in 1999. I was a flying officer. I became a squadron leader in the Royal Air Force Reserves. And that was me training to deal with the Russian threat. And we were training, first of all, in Kosovo, when the Russians took over Pristina airfield. And actually training, we were there in real time as the airfield was divided between NATO and Russia. And also after that, we went to Hungary to train the RAF to counter the threat from Russia. So even though eyes had been turned to the Middle East by 2000, 2001, of course, always the threat that Europe faced from Russia was not forgotten. And that is what the RAF has been training for, and teams from the RAF have been training Ukrainian forces to deal with the threat, which is one of the reasons why Ukraine has proved so resilient. Now, the other threat, of course, as I'm sure we'll hear a little bit later as well, is from climate change. And I've been lucky enough to spend quite a considerable time over the past few years in Norway's high north, chairing this geopolitical conference called Arctic Frontiers, which has been absolutely crucial at a time when there's been this fracture between Russia and other Arctic nations. It's been really the sole conference whereby dialogue could continue. And there, the realities of climate change really hit hard. The Arctic ice sheet is melting. That's opening up new shipping routes, but it's also causing potential for future conflict over resources, over mining opportunities, over transport routes. And so it's considered potentially to be the next area of where geopolitical risk could erupt. But at the same time, we have to look at how climate change is affecting other parts of the world, and there could well be repercussions there. For example, the United States, we've seen the terrible flood damage in Texas. And as these events keep happening, it could lead to potentially another big financial market wobble, because what you're seeing is that great swathes of US residential property could become uninsurable. And with the US deficit deficit rising and Trump's big, beautiful bill being unleashed onto the world, increasing the US debt mountain even further. Will the US administration have the money to pay to reinsure all of these different properties that are risk of forest fire or of floods, for example? It's another potential threat on the horizon to think about. So there's a lot on, isn't there? Whew. How do you deal with all of this? And you wouldn't be, I'd forgive you if you looked a little bit like this. The sad clown in the fairground, thinking, God, there's so much on, I can't make a decision. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of companies are doing right now. They're thinking, look, doing nothing is the least worst option. At least I won't make a mistake. At least I won't pour lots of money into strategy that the world could lead to loads of upheaval in the next couple of years. So do nothing appears to be the approach. The problem with that is that do nothing approach means that we're going to continue to get stagnating growth. Your company isn't going to survive and thrive. It's just going to amble along and troubleshoot where it can. What we need instead is a bit of ringmaster optimism. So how do you get that? Well, the whole idea there, the ringmaster assembles the best team. She assembles the agile acrobats and those threat tamers that can really keep an eye on the horizon and tame those threats that are coming down the line. And to do that, what you need to do is scenario planning. Take a leaf out of the military's book. They had all these different risks on the horizon. You don't know which one is going to erupt at any one time. But if you can plan simultaneously for those different scenarios, it means that you are happy with plan A, but you always know you've got plan B and C in your back pocket. And then you can make your agile team move with you. We are very lucky right now. We have these incredible tools that we can draw on. Artificial intelligence has enabled scenario planning. You can use scenario builders for constructing all these different environments and assess whether you are ready for the risks that could be ahead. The other ringmaster role that I think everybody can learn from, as well as being the fount of all knowledge. She knows exactly what's happening in her big top. She knows what's going to happen ahead. She knows what the crowd's like. She's become the fount of knowledge amid uncertain times. You certainly don't know when there could be an elephant charging from behind the scenes or unruly members in the front row. She's the fount of knowledge, and that's also what we can do in these uncertain times. Be the linchpin in your department, the linchpin in your organisation. That's the role that I've been doing for the past 5 years. I am now drawn on for my advice for the C-suite, to tell them what I think is going to be happening on financial markets in the future, how that could affect operations to come, even the help desk dealing with calls from concerned savers and investors. But overall, being the guide through this uncertainty, assessing the risks on the horizon. So it is abundantly clear we are living through a circus of uncertainty. But instead of taking the option of doing nothing, sitting on the sidelines, really try and inject your organisation with a bit of ringmaster optimism, be the fount of knowledge, and be that go-to person for when the going gets tough. Thank you.